Plans for the next town hall meeting in Otter Creek are underway as tensions continue to rise. One council member is making comments publicly about other council members. There's a pull for power with the Strong family and Vice Mayor Zim over property and boundary lines. Some residents are saying that they're bringing friends from Northport, when we all know they don't have any friends. There's civil protection orders that keep certain residents away from me, George, and all my employees. You got illegal betting with Don the Con. You've got state involved with Mary and Russ. And who knows how many times Russ is going to stick the finger up the nose this time around. George and I got to get on the road, and we got to get back to Otter Creek. And who knows what's going to happen this time around at this meeting. Even though our hearts are pulled to stay here because there's a little baby that we just can't get enough of.
Remember when we announced that baby George was in the belly of mama Patience at half meal time to grill?
Yeah.
Would you guys like to make an official announcement here at Half Meal Time to Grill?
We're having a baby!
I don't want to feel offended. Are you going to name the baby George?
No. What was your question?
I said,
Are they going to name the baby George? Baby George. And Cordelia George.
Now you know where the name Baby George came from. And Pepper is probably the cutest baby in the world. And we want to actually babysit. Except we're headed to Otter Creek, where you gotta babysit adults. Let's get into this town hall meeting. Madam Mayor Therese just hung up the town council agenda. Faster than any other mayor has ever done it in the history of Otter Creek. The monthly meeting is always the same. It's on a Tuesday night, the second Tuesday of the month, and it starts at 7 p.m. Although this agenda suggests that there's going to be some significant changes, which we will get to and address. Our new mayor, Therese, knows Sunshine Law, and she abides by Sunshine Law. Complete opposite of what was happening under Russ The Suss. And you can claim ignorance, but ignorance does not negate that you are responsible for the consequences of breaking the law. And she does above and beyond to make sure no laws are broken. So what I have here is the printed off copy, which is already posted all over Otter Creek. Last month there were a lot of special meetings, going over trim, going over budgets. There were even conversations of unincorporating, which I'm thrilled to see if that is a current topic for this meeting or not. First part of the agenda is Madam Mayor doing the call to order, the Pledge of Allegiance, and a roll call. I appreciate that. And as a matter of fact, I know there's been conversation about adding prayer into the actual call of order, which many of the other towns and even the county implement prayer in their call of order. Now, there are some that go, no, that can't happen. That's separation of church and state. Number one, you need to look at your history of actual separation of church and state. It's church trying to keep the state out of the church, to mandate different things, to say people have to follow this or have to do that. Not the state trying to keep the church out of the state. Regardless of whether you believe in prayer or not, I think it actually might set a positive tone for town hall meetings. There are a lot of things I don't believe in and I don't participate in, but I'm not vocal about it. I go, you know what? You do you, and I'm going to continue to do me. The roll call is now the way that it is because Russ the Suss would not actually state his name. So now Madam Mayor Therese has to state the name of each council member for them to say here. Where Russell was only going, I don't even know what vowel he was pronouncing when she would call his name. Next line item is the approval of the agenda and the bills. So as Madam Mayor comes with an agenda for the council members, they approve it so it's official as what they're going to go over. Now, they have every right to adjust that agenda. They can tweak it, they can talk about other things, they can add, they can subtract. Bills. Man, bills has been a huge thing in Otter Creek. Remember when Don would constantly fight with Russell and Mary because he got no information about the bills? But now, Belinda and Madam Mayor Therese are providing all the bills and all the information for all the council members. They have plenty of time, days, to actually look at that and know all the information. Now, how much do you want to bet because it's not illegal for you and me to bet here. We're not council members like Don betting on clean water. How much you want to bet? It's still going to be an issue because Don and Russell didn't come and get their packets early, even though they just live just moments of a walk away. Up next on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the special meetings. So from September 8th and September 18th meetings, and if approved as submitted, Mayor Granger signs one copy for public records. This is huge in regards to public records. So what Madam Mayor Teresa is doing is she's putting the actual minutes in front of the council. The council are actually voting and saying, yes, this is what happened, and then that gets submitted as a public record. Remember, public records is the issue that I have with the town currently. With Russell and with Mary, they provided me with no records whatsoever. Attorney Worm provided me with no records whatsoever. They legally must provide me with records. Madam Mayor Teresa is going above and beyond to make sure that not only are the records there, but the records are approved by all council members as they become a public record, and then the public can come and get a copy of the records. Records aren't free, though. It takes time, manpower, paper, ink, printing, you name it. All of those fees are associated with getting records. My public records request is costing me thousands upon thousands of dollars. From those public records, further lawsuits were going to be initiated, such as the illegal ordinance only targeting me and only charging me a different fee for water in Otter Creek. But now with the new administration, we can look forward to peace and we can look forward to things being done right. I don't feel a need to pursue those types of lawsuits anymore. But we still are in an issue that Russ The Suss, Mary, Laura Mott, Attorney Worm created. Next portion up is public participation. And this is where members of the public have 3 minutes to speak to the council on any topic, any one topic. The topic needs to pertain to the town and needs to be respectful with no foul language. I typically don't have an issue with foul language, yet we all have that point where there's an explosion. And sometimes there are people who can push me to that point. As a matter of fact, if I had the opportunity for public comments, I would want to address some of those issues with those particular people, such as the county statutes. Levy County Statute 50-688 in regards to recreational vehicles. In other words, campers on your property. In all residential zoning districts and in all subdivisions with the non-residential zoning districts, major recreational vehicles shall conform to the following standards. Number 1, no major recreational vehicle, a camper. No major recreational vehicle shall be used for living, sleeping, housing, purposes on the premises, except that one major recreational vehicle shall be allowed for occasional living for the accommodating of visitors up to a period of no longer than 14 days. Number 2, then the zoning officer may grant a temporary permit for 90 days, which cases include living on site while a home is being constructed. So, you tell me, we're now well over a year with a camper being on a residential piece of property illegally and then bringing in other campers for over 2 weeks. Levy County Statute 50-738 in regards to reptiles, farms, zoos, similar facilities, keeping of exotic animals. And we go down to number 5, locations must be within outside of a 1/4 mile of any residential area. It's prohibited. Why do we have the neighbors we have living the way they are with the animals that are there? Quite possibly my most impactful public comment would be, Don, you owe me $50.
I'll bet you $50 it'll pass any test you put it through.
Next up, old business, followed by new business. This is pretty standard for Otter Creek. Every meeting I've ever seen, they call out old business. And I believe what the attempt is to go over everything that they've talked about previously, but there's no resolution towards it. It's not an end-all. This is our solution, the direction we're going. So particularly here in the old business, we have hiring for the clerk position and attorney position. So let's touch base on the hiring for the clerk position. This has been talked about for the past few months, to the point of there have been workshops. Don has complained, Russell has complained, And neither of them have shown up for any of the workshops. Except I believe Councilmember Gale brought Don to one of the workshops to pick out the resume that spoke highly the most to all the council members for that position. So now we have Belinda as the bookkeeping side of the clerk position, which is a very temporary or part-time. Temporary is the wrong word. Part-time position. And now they want somebody to do all the clerical work as well, which again is a very part-time position. Hours will be extremely limited because that mess of an office has almost been cleaned up. So now, when getting into the office, it was high volume hours. Now those hours are coming down because it's actually being clarified what is being done in there. And now they have systems. And once you get the systems in place, the work goes fast. Well, they still don't have that clerical side of the position hired. And to my understanding, because we saw this in last month's meetings, there was supposed to be another workshop to go over resumes to pick out another person. I don't know who showed. I don't know who didn't show. But I think we're going to find out in this meeting. With the attorney, the town is still looking for an attorney. Attorney Warm, in my opinion, corrupt as corrupt can be. I think the name that Russell gave him, Attorney Worm, is appropriate. Scraping the ground with his belly and bottom of the barrel in regards to attorneys that could actually represent the town. You don't want the bottom. You want the top. You want the best. The problem is attorneys who are the best don't want the mess that's been created. How did Otter Creek get into a mess? Well, it's Russ The Suss. You know it. I know it. And Russ The Suss is still on the council. So now you have all this turmoil. Now it's out online. What attorney goes, yeah, let me throw my hat into that ring? That sounds like fun. Let me throw my hat into that ring. I'd like liability on myself. Look at Attorney Warm. Completely and totally liable for some of the things that have happened in Otter Creek. And you think another attorney wants to place themselves in that position? It's not an easy thing for a town of Otter Creek to find an attorney. Not only that, attorneys cost good money. A lot of money. Some of them, $150 an hour. At the lowest, if you're scraping the barrel. That's what Attorney Warm was getting. Some of the highest, $400 an hour in that area. The highest in the area is $400 an hour. That's who we have representing us against the town at $400 an hour. Who in their right mind, if they're an attorney, goes, yeah, I think I'll take this town of 100 people on who probably won't be able to afford me, who is in a tremendous amount of legal trouble and trying to find their way out of it. I'll jump on board when it's all settled, not during the massive storm. New business is up after old business, although I am concerned that some things are going to be brought up during that old business, such as property lines, such as building inspector. Remember all those fights last time? But here in new business, we have agreement with Tammy Jones for elections. Now, we know Tammy Jones is part of the elections board, and I think she runs the entire elections board in Levy County. I don't understand what this means because I'm not at the meeting yet. But I will understand what this means because we're going to learn it together. My guess is an agreement with Tammy Jones for elections is how much she gets paid to run our elections, what's happening in our elections, how the elections are being staffed, things along those lines. Now, that's what I'm guessing. I could be completely and totally off, but you're going to find out when we find out at the actual meeting. So whatever this agreement is with Tammy Jones for the elections, we'll figure it out together. Next up, after that, is resolution for meeting time change. Now, remember I told you the meeting time is always at 7 p.m. And there have been times that the meetings have gone to 9 p.m., 9:30 p.m. There are times where there have been council members literally falling asleep during the meetings. Not a joke at all. Captain Dan would be the perfect example if you go back and look at the meetings from a year ago. There are times where Don seems engaged, and then he's completely and totally in outer space. And time could have an issue with that. So I'm guessing that the time is going to be talked about and adjusted so it doesn't go so late into the evenings, and people can be a part of the process of town hall and yet still go back and be a part of their family life as well. Which is really, that's what we want in the town, right? We want to be with our family. We want a better town for our family, for our kids. We want to leave them something better than we had for ourselves. We all have that yearning inside of us to do that for the next generation, usually. All right, after that, so we got a resolution for the meeting time change. Grant acceptance letter. So we have the grant acceptance letter. Now, I'm not sure what that is about either, but based on previous meetings, they've been talking about the grant with the over $1 million, how it would be used. We've got fiber optic coming into the town. Now what happens is there going to be a building, or is there going to be sidewalks? And even in regards to that grant money coming in, how do you future fund it? I mean, that's a huge thing. I can build a building such as this, which is a 6,000 square foot house, but to fund and actually operate this 6,000 square foot house on a yearly basis probably costs us another $100,000. So how do you get money to actually keep the buildings and the processes and the programs going? Because grants are a one-time deal, unless you get more, or unless you raise taxes crazy up on the people. Or remember when Russell didn't want taxes raised? Guess what? He did, just a number of years ago. Gainesville Sun, 2003, reads like this. Town looks at tripling the tax rate, by Karen Voiles. I'm not sure if I said her last name right, but her first name is Karen. Otter Creek. The last time this little town of 121 residents led the state in anything was in 1999, when it was the first municipality to offer a $50,000 homestead exemption for senior citizens. Now Otter Creek is poised to lead the state again for the second time ever. The town council is considering tripling the property tax from 3 mills to 9 mills. Now keep in mind, Russell was arguing with Madam Mayor Therese at 7.8, I believe it was. He didn't matter what it was, he was against it. Guess who wanted to triple it in 2003? Oh, I'm going to read it to you. All right, so town council is considering tripling the property tax from 3 mills to 9 mills, so they can afford to hire a 1 full-time worker. Although mandatory tax proposals were still being filed Friday, Florida Department of Revenue officials said that they had not heard of any other municipality getting even close to that big of a jump in a property tax rate. You want to know who's tried to raise property taxes the most in Otter Creek? Russell Meeks Sr. In some places, tripling the property tax would promote enough tax money to hire 1 full-time employee at a professional athlete rate. In Otter Creek, the proposed increase would be sufficient to hire 1 worker at a slightly more than minimum wage. 1 mil is for $1 for every $1,000 of taxable value. Taxes on a property appraised at $50,000 would be $150 at 3 mills, but it would be $450 at 9 mills. Guess who says this? We're not for sure on this yet, said Russell Meeks, the council member who proposed the increase. Let me say that again. The council member who proposed to increase the taxes by 3 for the residents of Otter Creek. We're still kicking around some ideas. But if we hadn't voted to consider this, we couldn't have done anything for another year. In Otter Creek, each mill brings about $2,500 into the town's coffers. The 3 mill rate brings in another $7,500 a year, which is about 1/5 of the annual $40,000 budget. The proposed tax increase would raise about $15,000, almost enough to pay for a full-time employee. The town has a part-time clerk, Rosemary Severino, Don the Con's wife, who works about 50 hours a month for $7,200 a year. Council members have estimated it would cost another $17,000 a year to pay the taxes, workers' compensation, hourly wages for a $7 an hour maintenance worker. The worker would mow along the paved streets, make any needed repairs to Town Hall and the park behind it, and eventually learned to operate the city's water plant, which is now being cared for under a contract with a licensed operator. And the story goes on and on. 20 years ago, Russ The Suss, trying to triple the members, the citizens, the residents' taxes. And now he's against everything. Department reports is next. Any functional council should have responsibilities. You can't just show up, get paid, leave, okay? So delegation is key. And we see there are different departments. We have administration, maintenance, parks and rec, public safety, building and zoning and water. Now, what I do know, administration, that's probably Madam Mayor Therese. Again, I don't know 100% for sure, but I'm going to say administration is Madam Mayor Therese, and then maintenance would be Richard, even though I don't know if there's a council member over maintenance or not, but zoning and water, we seem to hear the most from Vice Mayor Zim, so I believe he's over zoning and water. Parks and rec, remember, they took all the nets down, they took all the park supplies down, so I'm guessing there is nobody over actual Parks and Rec. Public safety, I don't know. I don't know who's over what, but we can watch together as we're in the meeting. So administration, that'll probably be Madam Mayor Therese. Again, maintenance, they'll probably ask Richard. Is there anything we need to know, Richard? With the hurricane that came through and the winds, really what we know is that some tree limbs came down and God spared Otter Creek, which is a tremendous blessing. But Cedar Key has not been spared. And George and I do plan on spending time in Cedar Key and volunteering and helping rebuild that town as well while we are back in Florida. And then we also have zoning, water. I mean, I hope we're going to hear that the water line is coming soon. But at this point, we don't even know if our water filtration system is back up and running. Because at the last meeting, it still wasn't up and running. So right now, we probably still have unfiltered water, or it's unfiltered with the new system that was brought in that has not been hooked up because it was hooked up wrong by Russell. So hopefully we have clean water soon for the residents. This next area is where I think the meeting's going to get the most interesting. Hiring a building inspector, building code enforcer. Now, you already heard me talk about some of the statutes that are being broken across the street from me, and that enforcer will boot them on out. That's the job. But there's also permitting. And in the last meetings, there were, bashing of heads, back and forth, a battle and arguments and fights about properties, about boundaries. Now, one of the things we do know that has happened is that the interlocal agreement with the county is no longer in existence. So that ended. So as of right now, where the county was operating under this agreement to do these types of enforcing and permitting deals with the town is now responsible to figure it out. There's also some drama behind all of this. I don't understand everything that has gone on or is going on, but I know Councilmember Gale is publicly posting about not being okay with some things that have happened in regards to other council members with this particular issue. And I think this will be fleshed out in the actual meeting. The person this affects the most is actually me. You're going, but Jeremy, you haven't even started building yet. You're right, I haven't. And I have no intentions to start building until everything settles. We've got the cell tower. There are more permits in Otter Creek than anywhere else based on that cell tower. And right now, the cell tower workers are trying to figure out how in the world they get a permit. So it's the same issue when I complained about all the statutes being broken by my neighbors. I call the county. The county goes, well, we're no longer going to be responsible about that. You got to go to the town. I call the town. The town goes, well, the county's taking care of it. And here they are in the middle getting away with it. Number one, they will no longer be able to get away with any of it. Number two, now you're in this limbo area of how do you get a permit? You're no longer under the interlocal agreement. I've got people working on the cell tower, not me, it's them. They only lease the property from me, but they can't even get their projects done because the town's not sure what's going on. This has to be settled. The imminent issue is the cell tower right now, And that's also what is going to be feeding, or is part of feeding, fiber optic to the town of Otter Creek. This is where the permits come from now, Otter Creek. Except right now, there's nobody. There's no system. There's no way. There's nothing. I got no doubt there's going to be huge arguments and battles and fights all over this issue. And I'm not looking forward to that. We are people who want peace. Once we get pushed, though, why are people so shocked when we shove back? And then they claim to be victims. After all of that comes announcements. And one of the announcements is children's food table every other Friday. And then we also have email water bills, which we do receive. Actually, I just sent my payment in today. And George, remember when we got like 100 different envelopes with stamps on it from that one storage unit but no letters in it? Mm-hmm. And I told the world, I was like, I'm going to reuse all of these. Guess what I did?
They're perfectly good envelopes and perfectly good stamps. Why not reuse them?
Okay, so...
It beats going into the landfill.
So, we are using it, and Otter Creek, you will be getting a storage unit envelope. I put my address on it, and I whited out the address it was supposed to go to with a stamp that was already like that. That's how we roll. We reuse. We recycle here in the Hale's home. Another announcement, the Wakasasa. I love saying that word, Wakasasa.
Waka, waka.
Waka, 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 waka. I was like Pac-Man. Wakasasa. Waka, 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 waka. The Wakasasa Water and Wastewater Cooperative Meeting, which is to get clean, fresh water to us. It's October 18th. This is the beautiful part about this. Our new mayor actually shares this information with us. She's open and transparent about it. Our old mayor told us nothing. Absolutely nothing. And then the public will have another opportunity for comments right there. So, you know what my public comments would be about. I'm curious. What would you want to say during the public comments? Let me know in the YouTube public comments below.